Okay, we will go ahead and start. Welcome, I'm Rebecca Hawley. I'm the Director of Special Education for both campuses at Tilden Preparatory School and also host the Conversation and Education series that happen on a monthly basis. We offer them each month a different presenter throughout the year, not during the summer months, but during the academic year. And we're really excited to have Wendy Morrison back, who will introduce herself and talk about the presentation tonight and kind of what to expect. I just want to do a few housekeeping notes. Please make sure that if you're not talking, that your mic is off so we don't have background noise. And at any time, please feel free to put a question in the chat box. This will be very interactive, as Wendy will explain, and we'll answer questions kind of as we go. And then there'll be ample time at the end also just for questions and answers. But it really is an interactive process so we can learn from Wendy and the wisdom that she's going to bring to us tonight. So Wendy, I turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for you folks who are showing up at 6:30 p.m. I appreciate it. And you know, my deal with Tilden Prep is that I'm always very happy to come on here and do a Q&A with parents rather than to get on and do pontificating or talking to you, making a presentation. I want to hear from you. I think you are the heroes of the pandemic, being parents that have lived through these very difficult years. And I want to just answer any questions you might have about the college application process, specific colleges, the UC system, what's going on in your heads as you look ahead to your students moving through high school and getting ready to apply to college. I am an independent college advisor that has been working in the Bay Area for, this is my 21st year. It's been a very rewarding career for me because parents are wonderful, students, high school students are wonderful, and we've gone through lots of ups and downs here. And the last few years have been particularly challenging for everyone. And I just kind of want to hear what your questions are. So I am not wanting to talk tonight. I'm wanting to answer questions. What's on your mind? What are you thinking about? What would you like to ask me?
Thank you, Wendy. And again, if you're not comfortable sharing with everyone, you can put it in the chat box and I'll get the question.
So what's the, what are the pros and cons between going directly into a university upon high school graduation versus going to a JC?
Okay.
Especially for kids who are special needs, which is my situation.
Okay, can you explain a little more about special needs?
You mean the type of special needs for my child?
Yeah.
You want
It has NLD, central auditory processing disorder, definitely a math deficiency, diagnosed math deficiency as well. Otherwise, verbally very articulate and bright, very able to express herself.
She has lots of different diagnoses. I mean, I don't want to bore you, and all the different symptomatology that comes with it.
Okay. So my only concerns about the JC route at this point in time, and it does depend upon, you know, what your particular student's GPA is at this point in time in high school and how much they have been struggling. The community college route to University of California or Cal State has become a little more difficult than it used to be. Okay, it just because, and you know, it's still a good route, But the counseling staffs at the community college system, I would say, are underfunded. Okay, so that the issue becomes when your student looks to try to transfer to a UC campus or a Cal State campus, they need to have met some requirements to transition into an upper division major. And that a time clock is sort of ticking for them to get those prerequisites done. And it depends on the student and the parents and how much you want to be in there helping them, whether you can get those prerequisites met at one particular community college or whether you need to be doing some shopping. You know, you get a particular class done at Laney College, you may need to go to Berkeley City College to get another class done. And what you're trying to do is to meet the prerequisite requirements for smooth transition into a major at a Cal State or a UC campus. And there's some moving parts to that. The counseling staffs at the community colleges have, in times of economic distress, been slashed and then having to be rebuilt. And I would say they are not robust. Okay, so this has to be a team effort of a family if you make this decision to go from California Community College into a UC or a Cal State. You know, to their credit, UC and Cal State have tried to kind of smooth the tracks with things like the transfer admission guarantee for some UC campuses, but it still leaves you in the driver's seat to do a lot of the work to help your student get the courses they need for the smooth transition.
So with the smooth transition and the meeting of the requisites, et cetera, that you just mentioned, would all of what you just said still be the same if it's for a private, smaller college, university?
So in other words, if your student did not go straight from high school, you mean, are they thinking about, are you thinking they would take a year off and then apply to a private college? What is your thinking?
Well, at this point, we don't really have much of a thinking because we're just gathering up information, hence we're here.
Right. Well, what year is your student in high school at this point?
She's a sophomore.
She's a sophomore.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we're thinking, just surmising at this point, that if she goes to a university, it probably will be a small university and that will probably be private because it's just because of her profile.
Okay.
And so I was just wondering if what you just said also pertains, you know,
no, completely different, completely different. Then what you're thinking about, if she is planning to, and you have the means to think about sending her to a private college, then you're trying to identify those schools where there would be the great learning support, right? So that she could get the accommodations and the support she needs from a private college. That's completely different. She would be looking to see what are the GPA requirements for certain colleges, where do I want to be in the United States, and in terms of, where you would like, how close or how far away you feel comfortable having her being. And the private colleges are a completely different ballgame. Okay. Then you're looking at trying to scope out what are the learning services that are provided and the tutoring services and accommodations that your student could get at a particular private college. And you want to try to figure those out and go for the schools that will help her thrive.
In your experience currently, which are the smaller private schools in the Bay Area, or maybe even a little bit beyond that, who have good service departments currently?
Yeah. Now that in the Bay Area, you know, there is a mandate through the American with Disabilities Act for the UC campuses and the Cal State campuses to provide, good learning support. But as I have already indicated, I think there's some gaps there. For the private colleges, it really involves looking very carefully at each college's Office of Student Accommodations. I'm coming up blank with schools in the Bay Area that would really, support schools, support students in the way I would want you to be supported. I would say you would want to look at a school like University of San Francisco. In my experience, the Jesuit schools have, there are some schools with more support services than others. So I do need you guys to know that my practice is one where this is not a specialty of mine, to identify the learning support services at various colleges. But I don't know, Rebecca, is this something that you have knowledge of and could step in here?
Yeah, no, I absolutely do. St. Mary's in Moraga it's gone up and down. Currently, they have a pretty strong program. And at any private college, because usually they're not receiving federal funds, which puts them under the same mandates under the American with Disability Acts as public colleges, universities, state schools, UC schools. What you really want to do is, as Wendy said, really go and what I would advise is talk to the admissions counselors first and ask them, what might this look like? St. Mary's is pretty good. Mills College has been great, but they are going through a transition to Northeastern. So it's going to be hard to know what that looks like in terms of what those accommodations look like. Historically, they've been really wonderful with neurodiversity. I'm hoping that will stay the same. I can speak to it being on faculty there. And having been a student myself there, they've done really well with this. Again, with the transition, that might not be known so much. And in terms of the two private schools, I would say Mills and St. Mary's historically have had really good kind of track records. Holy Names is another college that, again, I think you need to advocate a little bit more for yourself if you're a student. It can be up and down. But those are the three colleges I would say in the Bay Area in terms of private schools.
Do you know anything about Santa Clara? But Santa Clara, Santa Clara is a little tougher to get into than these other schools.
Yeah, Santa Clara is tougher to get into. And again, they do have some pretty solid services, but it really takes the student to advocate. And, one thing that I could advise, also having gone through this myself with my daughter and her having to learn the hard way, is once they turn 18, if they don't sign a release under FERPA for parents, legal guardians to have participation in communication with anyone at the school, it's totally in their hands. And that can be really complicated because kids at 18 feel like, I'm an adult, I got this, I don't want to sign that release. But I think for any, and I just say this as a parent and, in my specialty, that especially that transition first year or two, it's really important to still have that family support. So the more you can start talking to your students about if they have an IEP or a 504, or maybe not, they have accommodations through Tilden or through another private school, that those aren't automatically there when you go to college. You have to submit documentation, you need to work with, and every department calls something different: student support, student success team, students with disabilities. Every college has their own buzzword for basically the learning specialists and the disability support. But they really need to start that process once they're accepted to submit the documentation to get what is called a 504 plan. And that applies in a private school and that applies in a public school. Public university, and each university may have their accommodations that they will or will not do. And those are the type of questions you really want to ask any private or public. How do you work with students that have learning differences? Can you tell me about the typical accommodations that you might have for whatever your students' needs are? So that's the best advice I could do. Start having these conversations now around having students sign release so you can be involved, especially if you're going to a school where you know that that student may need to do more self-advocacy. There's other schools that just kind of get it, right? But it can be hit or miss, because basically what happens, they have the accommodations and the professor gets these accommodations, right, at the start of class. And it really is then individualized for the professor. Unlike an IEP, there's no team that's overlooking your kid. So the more, what I could say is asking about the support needs, what that looks like, how much do students need to advocate for themselves, how flexible are the professors, because it's going to be individual for each class, is the best way to start. And either, yeah.
But I want to say to you parents that there are people in the Bay Area who specialize in working with students with learning challenges, learning issues around the college choices, okay? And that they know about the schools that offer the excellent learning support. Now, what is a little embarrassing is that is not me. Okay, that is not my specialty, but there are definitely people out there where you could visit them. And what is really surprising about California and the Bay Area, look at the riches here, the intellectual riches in the Bay Area. We do not have that many options for kids in terms of colleges, even in the whole state of California. So it is sometimes important to go to somebody who could kind of sit down with you, learn about your particular student, their strengths, their interests, their passions, and kind of come up with a list of schools that will have that confluence of the kinds of academics they want, the student culture, and the learning support. There are those people out there, okay? So my particular strength is not in terms of the learning issues support, it's more identifying those students who are more generally in the high school population and are looking to transition into Cal State, UC, private colleges, anywhere in the US, just so you know.
I have a few questions that came in.
Okay.
Community colleges have good, we somewhat answer that, special needs and accommodations, and which literally have accommodations as in on-campus housing. I'm not so familiar with that. I know.
Oh, on-campus housing at community college. You know what? There actually, if you Google this, there is a list. There is a list. If you just type in community colleges in California with student housing, it's going to pop up. And now, unfortunately, it's college. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's being very Bay Area biased, but it's places like Susanville. Like it tends to be more sort of way up there in California that there are, or American River College, or different places where there are actual dormitories. And one of the most famous is Santa Barbara City College, which has private dorms that the UC Santa Barbara kids would really like to be living in. But so those are in high demand. There are certain community colleges in California with dormitories. So you can find that fairly easily.
I see another question that came in. How important are SATs after COVID-19? Do most colleges still consider these scores?
Okay, I love this question because, you know, thank you, University of California and the Cal State system for throwing, it's a beautiful monkey wrench, we love it, in the system by saying, hey folks, we're going test blind forever. It's like, yay, this is a beautiful thing. However, where does that leave us with the rest of the college universe? So for UC and Cal State, let me just be clear as to what's happening right now. Yes, the UC regents have come out recently and said, we will not be using SAT or ACT when evaluating your student's application for admission to the University of California from here on out, okay? What they will be doing though, there's always another side to this. They will be still looking at test scores. In other words, if your student takes the SAT or the ACT, they can still put it in the UC application and it may be looked at, it's blacked out for the reader when evaluating the student for admission. But once enrolled, they may look at those test scores to place your student out of some intro classes or for particular scholarships. It's very murky. It's hopefully going to become a little clearer. But I am counseling students in the class of 23. Continue if you are thinking about, if you're in test prep right now, if you're on track to take a test, go ahead, try that test. And we might put those scores in the UC application. If you have not yet begun test prep and you're wondering your class of 24, 25, my feeling is you will not need those test scores for the UC campuses for the foreseeable future. For the Cal State system through fall of 25, they are test blind. Once again, they are saying if you want to put the test scores in, they may be used if certain impacted campuses, those are campuses with too many students who want in for too few spaces, they may look at those test scores for some supplemental factors to try to figure out who should be given priority. So while they're saying the test scores have disappeared, there may still be reasons to take those tests. Above and beyond the UC and Cal State system, I am advising students to take practice SAT and ACT tests to see where they might fall, how they might do on these tests. And if they feel that their test scores are pretty good, they might just think about doing some test prep, doing the drill and practice, because most of the colleges and universities in the United States, other than the UC and Cal State system, may remain what is called test optional, meaning they would love to see test scores if they're good, okay? If they do not meet the mid 50% mark of what that particular college is asking for in a test score, you would not submit the test score because it's not going to help you, but you would go test optional. But if, here's my experience from the fall of 21 and the early round for the fall of 22, it's that those students with very good test scores to report, they were at an advantage for schools that were open to taking test scores. So It's a little bit, you're in with your students in high school right now, a little bit of uncharted territory, but my feeling is overall, take practice SAT and ACT tests if offered at your high school or offered online, see how your student does. And if they are motivated to do test prep and you can afford the test prep, I think it's still a good move to do other than UC and Cal State. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you. I see another question that came in. Sorry, my dogs are barking. What are examples of prerequisite requirements for the community college to the California State College pathway?
Wait a minute. What was that question?
What are examples of prerequisite requirements for the community college to the California State College pathway?
Okay, well now, this is a little complicated, okay? Because here's what you're doing at the Cal State campuses and the UC campuses. If you're at a community college, you are hitting the ground running in order, and the time clock is ticking, in order for you to try to transition into an upper division major at a UC or a Cal State campus, okay? So the answer to your question is, it depends on the major choice. And there is a great website out there called assist.org, where you type in the name of a major that your student might be interested in, biochemistry, let's say, and you type in the name of a campus, Cal State, is CSU Sacramento State, and up will pop what's called an articulation agreement between that particular community college and that particular Cal State campus as to what the prerequisites are that you need to meet in order to transition in to that particular Cal State or UC campus in that major. So,
Wendy, I'm sorry, Wendy, I lost you.
oh, okay.
You were talking about, you type in the name of the major and I lost the rest of what you said.
Okay, and then you type in, so they give you a place to type in the name of the major, and then they give you a place to type in, the community college you're going to, and the Cal State or the UC you want to transition into. And up will pop a screen that gives you, okay, here are the prerequisite courses for that major at Berkeley City College that are offered, that are needed at Sacramento State in order to transition into the major, okay? So it gives you two screens, and you are looking to see, what can I do at this particular community college to meet those requirements to transition into the major? So assist.org is a huge help, okay? Because it is doing the job of a community college counselor, for both, the Cal State side and the community college side. So assist.org is a place to go. But I can't answer a blanket question without having a major choice, and I wouldn't know what those prerequisite courses are.
And I just put that in the chat box too, just the website for folks that want to refer to that.
Great.
Wendy. I have another question that came in. How important are AP scores in the college application?
Okay, very good question. Very good question. And again, what has been surprising to me recently, and you know what, you guys, this stuff changes so quickly and so often. It is so hard to be on top of it. So I want to disclaim right there, but I along with other counselors, were wondering, okay, if the University of California and the Cal State system are taking away the test scores, what happens with the AP scores? Are those still relevant on some level? Are they going to be used to evaluate students? Or are they when they're applying for admission? Or are they only going to be used if they have a certain score achieved to waive them out of some intro classes once in college? You know, the name AP means advanced placement. It means your high school student is taking a college level course, which if you get a certain score on the AP test for the University of California, it is usually a 3. Scores are from 1 to 5. If you get a 3 on the AP test that is offered in May of each year after your student has taken an AP class, hopefully that means your student has passed for purposes of the UC campuses and will waive out of some introductory courses. They're given college level credit for that class. Now, our question as counselors was, okay, you've taken away the SAT and the ACT. Are you guys going to look at the AP scores? And how are they going to be used? Are they only going to be used for placement once you're in at a UC or Cal State? Or are they going to be used to evaluate the student for admission, since they don't have other test scores to use? And you know what? I put this question to the Office of the President. They have a great email address, ask UCOP, ask UCOP, the Office of the President. So I wrote to them and I said, I want the score here. Tell me what the story is. And they wrote me back after a week and they said, well, quite frankly, we are going to use the UC, that UC is going to use those AP test scores now for mastery of a subject. In other words, for evaluation purposes. And that's big, you guys. That's never been done before. Okay, so they're grasping. The University of California wanted to keep the test scores in place. I need you guys to know that. They were upset that they went away. So they're trying to couch it in, oh, we care about students and we're so happy to go, be test blind. No, they're not. No, they're really not. So they are using those AP scores now in place of SAT and ACT to a certain degree to talk about mastery of a subject. So I think they're important. I think they're important. And this puts more pressure on the student to be taking those AP classes and more pressure on the student to do well on the AP tests. Am I happy about this? No. Your students do not need more pressure, but that's where we are. Now, Cal State is a little murkier. I don't know that there's been sort of a policy directive on the AP scores, but I think you're still allowed to put them in the application. And I will be telling students to do that. And I hope that they will be doing well on the tests, because I think they might be used for evaluative purposes. So that's my long-winded answer. I'm sorry my answers are so long-winded.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
Yeah.
Very, very eye-opening. Other questions, again, you can, here's one. Is there a time limit on how many years you are in community college if you're doing the guaranteed path from community college to state school?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think the time limit is that you as the student are the time clock starts running when you enter community college. Your hope is the time limit is your own, right? That you want to be progressing and are hoping to get prerequisite classes done so that in your own life, as a normal, high school, college student, you can transition as a junior into, but is there an actual time limit? You know what? I don't know the answer to that question. I'm really sorry. I don't know. I really don't know whether the transfer admission guarantee would continue to be, upheld if you don't meet that time limit of doing it by the junior year. I don't know. I wish I did know. That's a good thing for me to find out.
Thanks. Other questions? Again, feel free to speak them out loud or put them in the chat box.
Hi, yeah, Wendy. Hi,
Yeah.
my name is Natalia. I have a kid, a boy, is sophomore. And my question, first of all, I'm not really familiar with all of this. I'm pretty overwhelmed because my education is from abroad. But having said that, my kid struggles greatly with math, and chances are that he will take a path that is not scientific at this point in time. For example, I don't know, he is taking AP history. So
Okay.
it could be history, could be politics. He loves politics, so an analyst, probably political journalism, something like that. So my question is, how much, if he's applying for a college in a non-scientific path, how much weight the math grade is gonna have comparing with the other subjects?
Okay. And I have to ask you a question. Is he struggling to the extent that it would be, you know, and how are you doing the grades where you are? Are they 1 to 100? Are they A, B, C, D, F? What are they?
He's doing really well with the history English arena. So he's in A territory. He has an F in this moment in chemistry,
Okay.
although he got a B in the previous semester, but he's not understanding a single thing. And in math, he's holding a B because his teacher is just sent by God, I think. Because my kid doesn't have a clue. And this is geometry, which still he's able to grasp something. I'm already crying, thinking in algebra 2 next year. So basically I have a similar kid to what Anna was explaining. Is it has a huge issue with math, and he's brilliant in other areas
yeah.
of the brain. And so he's very articulate. He's incredibly smart for history. He reads to no end. But in math, he's hopeless. And I'm a scientist, so I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay, that's really great. You know, I think it depends on the kind of school that he's applying to in the United States. You know, I think there are some that are more forgiving than others, right? And of course, what are the more forgiving schools? You know, I would say those private colleges that can see kind of the whole person more, that don't have as many applicants, and that really understand that kids are very uneven in their learning, right? And maybe they don't have as many applications as some of the other schools. There is definitely hope that, you know, that the issue in the United States, of course, is that these schools are very, very expensive, right? So if that is possible for your family, I think he can find schools where he can explain on his application. And there is a place to explain. You know what, guys? Math is not my thing, okay? You know, I am here, and you can see from my grades, you know, this is where I shine, and I have deficits, but I'm never planning to be a mathematician, okay? And it's going to be okay. Where it gets a little bit trickier is if you are thinking about those very competitive schools in the United States, where you have to be at a certain level in everything, you know, and not my favorite schools. Unfortunately, the University of California happens to be one of those systems where you have to have pretty good grades and everything in order to be taken seriously by campuses. But a lot of private colleges, you'll be able to explain who you are. And even at UC campuses, you can explain, but you need to have a certain amount of a certain grade, I think, in order to succeed, which would probably be at least a C.
Yes, yes, we are aiming for that for sure. I mean, he already
Okay,
understands that
okay.
the C is
So-
required.
Yeah, so you have a chance to explain yourself, you know, and you would do it through essay work. And there's another place on the UC application called additional information, and on the common application, which is used by 960 private colleges and many public universities. The additional information section is there anything else you want to tell us about your academic work? And you're saying, yes, let me tell you who I am, okay, academically. And you know what? They will read that. And if they're a college worth their salt, they're going to take it into consideration. And there are a lot of schools that will.
Okay, no, good to know, because
There's hope. There's hope, mother.
I hope so, because as other parents probably knowing here with the special needs arena, it's very common actually to have kids that are brilliant in everything but math.
Yes,
And so why not to give them the chance?
absolutely.
To a scientific path. If again, in the case of my kid, is more about the political arena, the political analysis.
Yes. Oh, you're so right. You're so right. And I really do think there are colleges that understand that. I really do.
Hopefully.
And having one of those kids, I can speak as a parent here. You know, for those that know me, most of you do. She has pretty severe dyslexia and auditory processing. It demonstrated most in math from the time she was first grade through college. And she did use that additional, let me tell you something about me. And it was actually really the first time she was able to speak about her dyslexia on her own terms, in terms of self-advocacy. She got into several colleges that really were the right colleges for her. Was she a kid that would go to UC Berkeley? Absolutely not, right? And it probably wouldn't be a school that would understand her. Is she a Stanford kid? Absolutely not. But she found those schools that got her. And I think also just the importance of helping your students, and I'm speaking from a learning a neurodifference, feel confident in who they are and advocate and speak about that on the college application, either in the essay. And what I often say is, and I've read applications for incoming college students in different departments, like I'm going to look at that kid and be like, they're really resilient. You know, they persevered this much. This is a kid. And often smaller colleges are looking for that, like who is going to be in the school community and really give back and make it through. And they do. And again, I speak just from teaching at a small school and going through this with my daughter and her older sister, both who have significant but different learning differences. They found schools that really got them as learners, and that made, you know, all the difference in terms of where they landed when they transitioned from college. And also being really realistic about what is the right school for me based on what I know about who I am as a learner. So I just say, as a parent and as an educator and as a special educator, the more you can start really helping your student to, you know, really own how they learn when they're going through this process and evaluating colleges for themselves.
That's so, that is such a great testament, Rebecca. That is such a great testament. And I think it really rings true, really rings true. Yeah, and there's a lot of schools that will respond positively to your son.
Rebecca, is there a way, other than what we've covered thus far, how you were or your daughters were able to find the schools that understood them and got them?
We worked with a college counselor who really specialized in learning differences. And actually we started in the 10th grade knowing that everything would take a little bit longer with my kid. She needed that running start. She needed that head start. So we started literally the start of 10th grade of just warming her up to it and knowing there'd be some step forward, some step back, but that she would need extra time, right? Even with the college essay, thinking about what does that even mean? She would need extra time. So yeah.
Okay,
We could talk offline about that.
Are we allowed to put in plugs for
yeah,
those,
absolutely.
for those people? Because
sharing community here.
Because it's not me, parents. It's not me. It is my colleague Rebecca Field. Rebecca Field consulting, and she is in Oakland. She is excellent at what she does, and she specializes in working with students with learning challenges, and she would be a great resource for you. I have worked with kids with learning issues, but her expertise is by far and away much more than mine. So that's where I would recommend you look.
And
That's my plug.
Yeah, as a parent, and also Rebecca's worked with many Tilden families, and I have a relationship with her going back to when I started as a head of school. She's excellent. But really kind of doing that research, and there's different ways, you know, to do it. And then again, I think what I can say as a parent doing the research on my own is in my field, but also just as a parent, I would call schools that my kid was interested in and talk to a counselor and really try to learn about their disability services, and then have that conversation with my daughter. So kind of went on the back end, right, of just gathering that information, but kind of putting my research hat on and having that information up front before we went into that process as well.
That's great. It does take a village, guys. I'm telling you, it is work for the parents, for the student, you know, even if you are working with a counselor. Yeah, it's work, because this adds an extra layer of trying to find what are the schools that appreciate, you know, the learning challenges and are really offering the support services. So
From what little I understand, I think we found that some of these counselors have packages that you can purchase, and then they work with you based on the packages. And some of them will have kind of like an intro type situation where you just pay like a smaller fee,
yeah,
and then they work with you just kind of initially and get a sense of who you are and kind of give you some general feedback.
yeah.
Do either of you have one recommendation versus the other route?
You mean doing the intro thing versus doing the package thing?
Correct. Like one or the other, or do the intro first and then see if this is going somewhere with this person.
Yeah.
Maybe doing the package.
Yeah. No, definitely. I would say do an intro meeting first, even if you know, I do charge folks now that I have 21 years of experience. I have a lot of people coming to me and wanting to work with me. I do charge for intro meetings, but I give a lot of good information in that intro meeting. So I do think that's worth paying for, and hopefully won't be exorbitant. And then you get to see, is that counselor a fit for you and you for them, right? That's important. I would not, this is just me, I wouldn't sign on to do a whole package thing with someone without getting a sense of who they are and what they're going to be able to do for you, right? That's just my feeling. And I as the counselor want to see, is this a family, and is the student going to feel comfortable with me? I think that's where you need to go first. That's just my own opinion as a counselor. Yeah.
I see another question that came in from Jillian, and I don't want to overlook this. When looking at Naviance and other college research websites, it seems like the range of projected GPAs, SAT, ACT scores accepted at universities shown is much lower than recent accepted students actually have. How do you truly evaluate what is the target reach school?
That's interesting. I was going to say, that's so interesting, because Naviance, I think this parent is referring to the Naviance scattergram, which is a graph where you are typing in the name of a school, the University of Pennsylvania, and it will be a graph at that student's high school of who has been admitted, denied, or waitlisted at the school based on the number of applicants from that high school. And your particular student is like the red or green dot on the graph. You know, those are ballpark estimates only. So you need to know they need to be taken somewhat with a grain of salt, but they tend to, I don't think they're lowballing. necessarily. I think a way to sort of get more feedback as to actual GPAs, I'm going to give you the name of a website that I look at often. It's called College Prep Scholar. That's one word, College Prep Scholar. And you type in the name of the test that your student has taken. In order to do one of these scattergrams, your student has to have a GPA in the scattergram and either an ACT or an SAT score recorded. So you type College Prep Scholar and either SAT or ACT and the name of a college. And up is going to pop the average GPA for the latest admission cycle for that school and the admit rate, the percentage of admit rate. And so the GPA, the SAT or ACT, that was the average, and the number of students admitted. And I think that's another way to sort of double check those Naviance GPAs. I also think you can check the college's own website. I was just on the UC website earlier this afternoon for a student and his parents to verify what the GPAs were, the GPA ranges were for the University of California for various campuses. The most recent statistics we had were the fall of 21. So there, it's always going to be a little bit old. College Prep Scholar seems to have the most current information that I could find. It's a way to double check.
Thank you. I see another question just backing up to what we addressed before. Did you say that state schools are not accepting standardized scores through 2024? If so, if you're on the guaranteed path and apply after 2024, would you ever need scores?
What do you mean the guaranteed path?
I'm not sure about
What does that mean?
I can tell you what I mean.
Oh, thank you.
That guaranteed path where if you maintain a B average and you choose a particular state school that you want to go to, that you are guaranteed admission into it if you have a B average.
If you have what?
A B average.
You know, first of all, I believe that the Cal State campuses are saying fall of 25,
Okay.
that they will be test blind. Okay. And then your question was?
The question is, on the guaranteed path, why would you need it? You don't need scores though, do you?
You don't know. For the Cal States and the UCs, we're technically not really talking about you needing to do the testing. And yet they're being a little mysterious about it in the sense that at least for last year's application, we were still able to put those test scores in the application. And then at the counselor conferences, we were being told that they were being used for certain purposes, okay? Which makes me a little uncomfortable to tell families, just completely forget about test scores. Do you see where, so it's a little bit murky right now.
But aren't you talking about people applying to be freshmen as opposed to transferring in on the guarantee?
Yeah, I am, I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure that if I understand correctly, all you need to transfer is a B average. And the prerequisites.
And that's what they're saying. That is what they're saying. So you don't need to worry about the test scores for transfer.
Okay. Just want to be double sure.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Thank you.
We have just a few minutes left, so if anyone has more questions for Wendy and would like to speak them out loud or put them in the chat box, please do. I also put the conversation in education, the rest of the year series. We have a few more left. You'll see it's all the full year, but there's some hot links. We have a really great, I'll just put a plug out there, a really nice workshop coming up next month in April from Daybreak Health around teen mental health and issues of anxiety in critical periods of development and transitions. It's a partnership that we have with them and they're wonderful. Again, all of these are always free to Tilden and to community members. So I encourage you to continue. And I see another question that came in. Do you need a recent neuropsych to qualify for a 504 at a community college? Yes, you do. It can be a neuropsych. It could also be a notice from a psychologist or from a doctor if the doctor, for example, is prescribing a medication around that more falls into the category of ADHD or anxiety, mental health issues. But usually they want to see it at least within 2 to 3 years. So if you haven't had one, let's say since middle school or freshman year, that 10th, 11th, 12th grade, having a recent documentation is important. And that goes for a community college or for a four-year college, graduate school, doctorate program, workforce, there on out.
Can I clarify, did you say that instead of a neuropsych, you could use your prescribing psychiatrist for?
Yes, you can. You can. If you're really, because again, the accommodations in college are not an IEP, right? They want to see the diagnosis. They want basically someone to solidify that, yes, this is in fact true and I'm treating this person for it, or they have a history. What I usually recommend is to get a recent updated psychiatrist or doctor's note and then also submit it if you have an older neuropsych. I always say the more documentation, the better, but
Okay.
you will need something recent for a 504. And again, each college has their own interpretation in terms of what accommodations they are willing to do. There's some very basic ones that they have to do by law under the American with Disability Act. But I always, again, recommend at community college, 4-year, either public, UC, state, or private schools to ask them, what does accommodations usually look like for a student with my students like need?
Thank you.
We have about 1 more minute left.
We should spend it by thanking both of you.
Well, I love these meetings where it's not a whole lot of people because I feel like I really get a much better sense of what your interests are and your concerns. And I just want to say, if I didn't say it before, I think I did say it. I am feeling for all of you parents during this pandemic period and all of your students. And I think you're doing a great job. And it's really hard. So it's been great to talk to all of you. I've really enjoyed it.
And Wendy, thank you so, so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's great to be with you too, Rebecca.
All right, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.